Got around our set that I was too chicken to introduce myself to the original series actors. It became something of a joke, and the crew began to give me some good-natured ribbing about my reluctance. Next Generation was immensely popular at the time, and I was still riding high on the success of Stand By Me. They couldn't understand why I was so intimidated by these actors. My face was splashed across the cover of every teen magazine in print. I was a Star Trek nerd and they were on Star Trek. Do the math. One afternoon, I was sitting outside stage 9, talking with Manny, my costumer. They opened the huge stage door across the way. I could see right into the set of Star Trek V. There was a large area like a cargo bay, filled with extras and equipment. It was different from our set. Like, not nearly as cool. But it was still unmistakably an enterprise. Standing in the middle of it all was William Shatner. He held a script open, sort of like it was a holy text. The way he gestured with his hands, I could tell that he was setting up a shot and discussing it with the camera crew. I waited for that familiar rush of nerves, but it didn't come. Seeing him as a director and not as Captain Kirk put me at ease. I knew that this was my moment. I knew that if I didn't walk over and introduce myself right then, I would never do it. I was wearing the gray acting ensign spacesuit, unzipped with the sleeves tied around my waist. I fucking hated that costume. I hated everything about it. It was up my ass whenever it was on. It was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. It was made of wool, so it was extra itchy around my neck, and they made me wear a muscle suit underneath it. Because really, when you're a 14-year-old nerd, you know what you need to be reminded of every time you move? How you don't have any muscles. Sorry, that's not in the text. That costume was uncomfortable. So I'd take off the top half whenever I got the chance. Because it was a jumpsuit, I would tie the sleeves around my waist and wear this lightweight 3D, I think I worked on in the 90s. Lightweight fleece jacket, zipped up to cover the embarrassing muscle suit the producers had me wear. You may have heard about it. We all wore those muscle suits. All 9 cast members on the call sheet wore muscle suits. Even Michael Dorn. I know, I'm sorry, am I ruining it for you? I think I was the most traumatized by it. I've always been a tiny little nerd without any muscle mass, and having to wear all that thick padding did little to improve my fragile teenage esteem. I turned to Mandy and I took off my fleece. I asked her to zip up my spacesuit and fasten the collar. Oh, Mandy, you came and you zipped up my spacesuit. I was going to meet William Shatner. I was going to do it looking as close to Starfleet regulation as possible. You know, like you do. She made sure my costume looked good enough for camera and she wished me good luck. I got a high five from one of the Teamsters as I confidently walked across the street and into the cargo bay of the Enterprise 1701A. It took about 8 steps for my confidence to evaporate. Surrounded by extras in Starfleet dress, standing next to a shuttlecraft, William Shatner, director, was immediately transformed into Captain Kirk, intergalactic legend. I was transformed from Wil Wheaton, fellow actor and mature film industry professional, into Wil Wheaton, the drooling fanboy and Star Trek nerd. I looked around. I guess I blended in well because nobody noticed me. I turned to make my escape and I bumped into a still photographer who had worked on TNG the first season. "Hey, Will, what are you doing here?" he asked. I swallowed and I looked at the stage door. just came over to look and leave. And listen to this guy who didn't turn his fucking cell phone off. Which is funny because back then cell phones were the size of this mic. Monitor, that's a monitor. I shuffled my feet and I began to move back toward the familiarity of my own spaceship. Well, as long as you're here, you should come and meet Mr. Shatner. Mr. Shatner? Who is this Mr. Shatner you speak? There's no Mr. Shatner here. Is he standing next to Captain Kirk? He turned toward Captain Kirk and he called out, "Hey, Bill, come here a second." My heart began to beat rapidly as he turned toward us. Captain Kirk looked right at me. I froze. He gave his book to someone and began to walk in our direction. I involuntarily straightened my back and sucked in my stomach. He didn't do the same. My muscles felt tight and awkward around my arms and my chest. Within seconds, he was standing next to us. He was about my height, looked a little heavier than he did on television. Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise said, "What can I do for you?" Did you ever know? Bill, this is Wil Wheaton. He's part of the cast of Next Generation, and he would like to meet you. Captain Kirk looked at me for a long time. "So, you're the kid on that show?" My mouth and my throat were dry. My palms were sweating. My heart pounding in my ears as I answered. Yes, sir. Hi. My name's Will. He continued to look at me. I carefully wiped my hand on the hip of my spacesuit, and I extended it. "It's really nice to meet you." He didn't take my hand. "What is that, your spacesuit?" He made a noise that was sort of halfway between a cough and a laugh. Oh, this? Yeah. It's not as cool as yours, but I mean, it's it's what they tell me to wear. I put my hand down. I really wanted to leave. I felt a little lightheaded. Why wouldn't Captain Kirk shake my hand? Why didn't he like my spacesuit? Could you see the fake muscles? Maybe he didn't like the color. I didn't like the color. I became hyper aware of the spandex and the